When I saw this massive retro dresser on Facebook Marketplace for just $80, I knew I couldn't pass it up. I've seen this exact design refinished a few times now out in the furniture world and definitely wanted a chance to try it for myself. The only problem is it's completely buried under a thick coat of white latex paint. This was built by Viscol by Victoriaville right here in Canada sometime in the early 70s. They actually produced several different versions of this same style for different price points, some with real wood veneers, others with laminate, or even a mix of both. So the construction details can really vary, and I'm not 100% sure exactly which one I've got. From the little bit that I can see peeking through this peeling paint, it looks like this might be laminate. And if that's the case, restoration isn't going to be an option, and repainting is in my future. Either way, the paint job that's on here now has got to go. It is chippy, drippy, and obviously not durable. Before I can send this dresser off to its next chapter, I'll need to strip it all the way back and start fresh with a proper finish that's built to last. Mid-century modern designs and even styles like this that carried into the 70s have been riding the home decor trend wave for years now, and they still have a very strong hold in the furniture flipping market. Honestly, it doesn't really matter if it's real wood veneer, a laminate veneer, or a mix of both. If the makeover's good and it's a functional, stable piece of furniture, people want it. This stuff can pull in some serious profit when it's refinished right. Now, I don't actually sell a ton of my flips anymore. Most of them get donated back into my community since I make my living sharing these projects here with you. But if this dresser ends up looking as good as I think it will, I might just list this one back on Facebook Marketplace and see what kind of interest I get. I'm going to get started by pulling out the drawers. A few of them do fall forward when you open them, which is because they're missing the little nylon guides on the back that hold them onto their tracks, but that's an easy fix that I'll deal with later. Normally, I start my flips with a really thorough cleaning and degreasing to make sure that there's no grease, oil, or wax buildup on any of the surfaces. But since I need to get all of this paint out of my way, I'm just going to go straight in with some chemical stripper, which will cut through all of that and get all that other stuff out of the way anyway. This Greenies is a little bit more expensive than some of the strippers that you can find in the hardware store, but I've been having really amazing results with it, and it's got the added bonus of being eco-friendly, and it's definitely much nicer to work with out in the garage than some of the stronger chemical strippers I've used. I'm going to brush a really nice thick layer of this over each painted surface and then just leave it to hang out and do its thing until I can see that it's breaking out the paint. Sometimes it just takes a few minutes. Sometimes, especially with the more eco-friendly products, it can take a few hours. It really just depends on the makeup of the finish that it's trying to eat through. But in this case, I could see that it was starting to crackle and kind of bubble up after only about half an hour. You don't always have to completely remove an old finish if you're planning on painting, as long as it's adhered really well to the surface underneath and it's something you can get smooth. But if I were to put a new paint job on top of this because it's just not stuck to the surface, whatever I put on top wouldn't stick either. Now that I've got things scraped back a bit, I can see just how much of a hodgepodge of different construction materials this thing is actually built with. The top that I was sure was laminate is actually real wood veneer over top of a particle board substrate. I think it's maple. The sides are just bare particle board, like totally bare particle board, which is weird. I don't think I've ever seen that before. The drawer fronts are also particle board with the real wood veneer over top, and all of the handles, legs, and base are solid wood. It's kind of hard to tell since I've scraped most of it off right along with the paint, but I can see that everything originally would have had this super common walnut wood grain printed kind of a paper sticker on it so that everything looked cohesive. Anyway, as I get each surface scraped down and scrubbed off with some fine steel wool to get around the curvy bits, I'm then going to spray it down with some of this finishing cleaner that's designed to work with the stripper just to get any last little bits of paint and residue off. And then I need to leave everything to dry back out. I messed up so bad here. I should have pried all of these appliques or handles off of the drawer fronts before I put all the goopy stripper on, because there's just no way that I can get in and around all of these curves and details well enough to be able to refinish anything. So it's going to be messy and very sticky, but I'm going to get a hammer and a blade and pry these off so I can get them cleaned up. Luckily, most of these came off pretty easily. They're just tacked onto the drawer fronts with a bunch of pin nails through the inside, but I did end up breaking one of the arch pieces in 2 different places, so hopefully I can just glue that back together nicely once I get all this sticky goop out of the way. Okay. I pulled out a small brass brush and some more fine steel wool along with my carbide scraper to try and help me get the paint off of these, and just added a little more stripper to things if it was starting to dry out. But I think it ended up taking me about 2 hours just to get these handles cleaned up. More time than it took to strip the entire rest of the dresser. I've let everything dry back out for a few hours now, so I think I'm safe to get started with sanding. There's obviously still a lot of paint left on here, which doesn't matter too much for the stuff that I'm planning on repainting, but I do want to keep some of the wood as wood for my new design, so I do need to get all of the paint off of those areas, and I just need to get the other surfaces nice and smooth. Like I said, I have never seen a piece of furniture, especially from this time period, have surfaces like this that are just plain particle board with that paper wood grain sticker over top. But here we are. Anyway, this stuff is pretty delicate, and it's also super susceptible to absorbing moisture, like even just pulling humidity out of the air and starting to swell. So to seal up these sides and give them a little more stability, I'm going to spray them down with a few heavy coats of this clear shellac. It's kind of like a protective candy coating. Onto the top, The dark brown wood grain pattern doesn't even match the wood grain pattern of the actual wood underneath, so I know that this veneer was never intended to be seen or be the final finish of the dresser. All the edge banding veneer around the top and the drawers is mahogany, I think, too, not the maple on the rest. So yeah, a mishmash of materials, never meant to see the light of day. Once I got the top nicely smoothed out, I moved back to the middle drawers and figured I should probably take these handles off too to get all the paint that was in those seams. I think I'm going to stain these long handles, paint the actual drawer fronts, and then do the reverse on the smaller drawers, paint the handles and stain the wood openings underneath. Anyway, I still have lots of sanding and cleaning up to do before I get to that. To help me get the rest of the paint off of these and get them ready to stain, I've just popped a squishy foam abrasive onto my sander so that I don't accidentally misshape or sand any of these curves flat. Okay, I think I'm done with sanding, so I'm just going to wipe each surface down with some denatured alcohol on a microfiber rag just to pick up any of that really fine sanding dust that's holding on. And then I want to see how these 6 smaller drawers stain. I did find some spots of wood filler on a few of them, but I think the handles or trim pieces should cover most of that. I'm only really worried about this one drawer where the damage is inside a panel that I want to stain and leave wood. Before I do anything else, I want to add an extra leg to support the center of this dresser and hopefully counteract the sagginess that's going on a little bit, or at least keep it from getting worse. So I'm just going to pull out this center support that's not really doing anything and replace it with a thicker piece of maple that I can screw a leg onto. The other piece was just tacked in with some staples, but I'm going to screw this one in so it's nice and secure. And then I'll cut a 2x2 piece, which is the same as the existing back legs on here. And I'll screw that into my new brace, probably about 2/3 of the way back, just so it's not super visible from the front. I am notoriously awful at picking stain colors, but my gut told me to go with this nutmeg shade from General Finishes. It's a pretty classic mid-century modern shade that's this super rich and warm, kind of like finished teak color. So I'm gonna brush this on, wipe back the excess with a shop towel, and we'll see what we get. They look pretty good. Way better than I was expecting, except for this guy, which is a mess, but I think I can camouflage that once the stain is dry. For now, I'm just gonna keep going and staining along the base and the front legs and the middle handles too. Does anyone else lay awake at night questioning their choice of stain color? Because I do every time. The more I thought about this sort of orangey tone with the black that I really want to paint everything else, I just kept seeing Halloween jack-o'-lantern black and orange, and that is not what I want. I want classy, sleek, dark walnut with black. So I'm going to try again with this dark walnut colored stain instead. This is water-based, and the general finishes that I used yesterday was oil-based. They're totally okay to layer as long as the oil is dry first. And again, this is just wipe on and rub off. I really love using this salmon stain because it's buildable. I ended up doing 3 layers of it to get to a shade that I liked, and it has blended in my ugly drawer a little bit more. But now I'm going to seal these up with some more clear shellac, and then I'll see about matching this patch spot a little bit better. Since this particle board is textured, I'm going to add a quick skim coat of spackle on top of it and then give it one more sand to smooth it out and not have it look and feel like painted particle board. And then I'll put another layer of shellac over top to seal and prime everything before I paint. I masked off the big drawers that I want to paint so I don't get a bunch of overspray on the inside of them, and then remembered that I needed to fix the arched handle that I'd broken earlier. So I got a little bit of wood glue on both sides of that break and then used some masking tape and good old-fashioned tension to pull it back together and hold everything in place while it dried. I'll put a little bit of wood filler over the seams and then sand it all smooth before I put them back on there, and hopefully no one will ever know. This emerald urethane enamel by Sherwin has become one of my favorite furniture paints. It's super tough and durable once it's cured and gives the most incredible soft satin finish when it's sprayed, but it can be rolled or brushed too. I'm using the color Caviar, which I've used a lot. It's a really beautiful, true black. And I filtered about 3/4 of a pint into the hopper of my gravity-fed pneumatic spray gun and added the tiniest splash of water. I'd say about a tablespoon of water because this paint is on the thicker side. And then I tested out my pressure and flow settings on a piece of cardboard to make sure I liked how the paint was coming out. If too much is coming out, you can end up with a kind of textured, splattery, or even drippy mess. If not enough paint is coming out, the paint can start to dry before it even makes it to the surface and ends up feeling kind of like sandpaper or looking splotchy or streaky. So testing out before you spray can save a lot of headaches. I'm probably going to need to do 3 coats of paint to get nice full coverage and build up a thick enough durable layer of enamel. This paint has a 4-hour recoat time in ideal temperature and humidity conditions. So while it's drying down, I'm going to go back to this drawer and see if I can get this spot to look a little less conspicuous. I know it's never going to look exactly like the rest of the wood grain around it. I just don't want it to look like a giant blob of wood filler when someone is looking at the finished dresser. This little touch-up kit has been a lifesaver and is another furniture flipping favorite of mine from the last few years. It's got all these little tubes of different wood tone paints, and it's pretty easy to just use them straight up or mix them together to create a perfect match. And since I've already sealed the wood, I'm painting this on top of a layer of shellac. So if I make a mistake or I'm just not feeling it, I can wipe it off with a damp paper towel and try again. It's very forgiving. Okay, I think that's going to be all right. Once the handles are back on in front, it won't be noticeable at all. I'm going to spray a few more layers of shellac over top and over top of the rest of the drawers and any other parts that I've stained to seal and protect all of that. And then I can finish up my painting. The paint is nice and dry, and I think it's hard enough to take a little bit of handling now, so I'm going to get started reattaching all of the handles and trim pieces. I do want to make sure, though, that I know which spot each drawer belongs in before I do any of that so that I get everything put back properly. I've got some 1¼ inch pins in my little pneumatic nailer. They're the same length as the original ones that I pulled out, so I shouldn't need to be worried about anything being too long and blasting through the fronts of the handles. And once I get each piece lined up where I need it to be, I'll just follow the old holes on the inside and place my new nails there. This one nylon guide that I found in the frame needs to be reattached, and I'll just grab another one out of my spare parts collection for the other drawer that's missing one too. And before I'm all done with this, I'm going to give all of the interiors a quick wipe down, sand off any messy bits on the sides, and condition the raw wood with some of this feed and wax. It's a blend of beeswax, carnauba wax, and orange oil that really nourishes the wood, brings out a bit of its warm natural luster, and just leaves behind a really nice protective finish. Treating the insides of the drawers like this not only makes them look and smell nice and fresh, but it also helps the wood from drying out and cracking over time. I brought this inside last night and didn't really notice the flashing or this stripiness that's happening on the top. This has happened because when I sprayed on the last coat of paint, it was too light and that paint was drying quickly as I was spraying it on. I'm obviously not going to spray on another coat of paint inside my kitchen, and I don't really want to haul this thing back out into the garage. So I'm just going to put on one more layer of paint right over top with a roller. Like I said, this paint rolls beautifully too, and that should fix the stripy situation. it's time to look back at where this whole project started out. I found this dresser on good old Facebook Marketplace, covered in some less than awesome white paint, but I knew it had good bones and a really popular design hiding under there that I could bring back to life. It's not solid wood or even faced with the pretty wood veneers of some of its fancier cousins, but it's functional and sound and really freaking pretty in this sleek black and walnut iteration. And honestly, I couldn't be much happier with how this one has turned out. From sad, peeling white paint to a bold, modern statement piece, it's proof that even the more cheap and cheerful vintage stuff can still shine if you give it a second chance. Ooh, and if I do pop this back up for sale on Marketplace, what do you think I should ask for it? I was kind of thinking in the $600 to $700 range. Is that too high? Too low? Let me know. As always, if you've enjoyed this transformation, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see even more vintage rescues and furniture flips just like this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will catch you all next time.